In today's episode, we talk about the 2023 Honda Civic Type R.
Price one is $65,434.
We also talk about 949 Racing.
What happened to 949 Racing wheels?
And finally,
What is your favorite JDM part on your car? $66,000. That's what a 2023 Honda Civic Type R costs at my local Honda dealership.
Calling Classic Honda. Press 2 for sales. Press 3 to help you.
I wanted to know if you guys had any of the new 2023 Civic Type R in stock.
No, we don't.
Is anything going to be coming?
We have one Sonic Gray. It's pending. It's probably going to take about 3 weeks. The price one is $65,434.
Okay, thank you.
Is it worth that money to you? What do you think about the power numbers? How about the looks? And how about those huge dealer markups that we're seeing in some places, especially here in Florida? I feel like I have to start this video talking about these crazy markups that we're seeing. I just can't seem to think about this car and then not somehow get onto the subject of the money that it costs. And right off the bat, that is a shame because we do have a car now that is manufactured in Japan again. The chassis is manufactured in Japan. The engine drivetrain is all done in the US, in Ohio. Where I'm at here in Florida, I think we have some of the highest dealer markups out there. California and Texas, I'm sure are big as well. $66,000 for a Honda Civic Type R, a Civic. I don't follow too closely the new car prices, but I'm pretty sure that you can get into some pretty good luxury or performance brands for that kind of money. And what's crazy is that this car has a $42,000 MSRP. In today's world, that seems like a pretty good price for a sporty kind of car. And in my opinion, what these markups are doing are knocking out some of the targeted audience that this car is meant for. Now, obviously you're gonna say, but dude, the prices are going up because people are willing to pay them. I do totally agree with that, I do. But in my mind, the people who would be out to buy a Civic Type R are the people who are in their late 20s, early 30s. They just got their really good first well-paying job. They're familiar with Honda because likely their parents have passed them down a Honda and they've been driving it forever. And of course, here comes the new car and they want to buy it. But $66,000, that may be a stretch for a lot of that targeted audience. And so it puts it in kind of the next category. People who are maybe a little farther along in life, a little more established, or they're just super Honda collectors. It just sounds kind of funny to me that maybe a 50-year-old executive somewhere would want to go buy a Civic Type R instead of an Audi this or whatever that. You know, Type Rs have always kind of been that boy racer car, not really a status symbol. And at $66,000, that likely brings the monthly payment up to $700-800 if you're not putting much money down. And frankly, that just may outprice a lot of that targeted audience. So how about the performance of this thing? We've talked about the money, but let's say you're good with the price. What are you getting for that kind of money? Starting under the hood, we got the 2-liter turbo, 315 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque. An improvement over the last model, but just. This car does have a higher power to weight ratio, but I think it got a little heavier too. So those power numbers just eked out the power to weight thing. One thing that I do love about the new Civic Type R is that it still retains that 6-speed manual. And likely if you're watching this video, you've heard about Type Rs before and Civic shifting in general and how it's some of the best manual transmissions out there. It comes with rev match control on your downshifts. It also has 4 drive modes and a different exhaust sound for each. Don't know what I think about that. Maybe a little Mickey Mouse there. Suspension-wise, it is still the McPherson struts up front, but it's something called a dual-axis McPherson strut, which tries to minimize the torque steer, and a multi-link rear suspension, which we've seen on all the Hondas for a while now. Something that is really cool on it, and was on the previous generation as well, the active damper system. Active suspension, essentially. That's Formula One stuff there, buddy. Not recent Formula One, though. Stopping power, it's got the Brembo calipers with a 13.8-inch rotor up front, limited slip differential in the transmission, electric power steering, 19-inch wheels this time. Good choice there, a little bit smaller, with a 265 Michelin Pilot. Very nice. More of the racy kind of performance parts, lightweight crank, lightweight flywheel, and also lightened hood and rear hatch. This thing has got improved engine cooling with a 48% larger front grille and aero mods all over. Probably the highlight on this thing, the beautiful rear spoiler. It's got some cool tech stuff inside with a data logger, a lap score, Apple CarPlay, the nav system, the blind spot and rear view camera, and something called the ACE body structure. I don't know. So it definitely sounds like you are getting some good stuff in there. But again, circling back to the money, if you're paying that kind of money and you're getting that kind of performance out of a Civic, okay, but what other cars are out in the market for around that price? First one up that probably everybody thinks of, the Golf R. That one you can start spending $45,000 for. Now, I've not looked into it myself. I don't know if there's a huge dealer markup on that, but for a base MSRP, if you're just paying $3,000 more than a Civic Type R, definitely in the same category. This one kind of surprised me. The Challenger Hellcat. $55,000 for this thing. And it's just like a, what, 800 horsepower monster or something like that? But obviously, you know, that car is an engine with a body built around it. You know, it's probably all plasticky bits that are way cheaper feeling than even a Honda interior. The Audi TTS. Again, we go back to that executive businessman. I kind of feel like he's gonna pick that Audi over a Civic Type R. How about the new Supra? Around $55,000 for those, depending on which one you get, of course. But that's a pretty cool car. BMW M2s, around $60,000. The Corvette. Now, obviously more of the base model kind of stuff, but still a Corvette. A Porsche Cayman. Now that to me is really where I'm like, yeah, Cayman, Civic. I'm a Honda guy, don't get me wrong. I am a Honda guy, but I'm also a race car guy. Cayman, pretty cool. And then the Mustang GT350. You know, it's funny, I'm kind of one of those secret Mustang guys, I guess, and I just let that out to the world. I've watched those cars in GT4 racing a lot, and they're hilarious to watch. Just all the power, but all the weight shifting around. It just looks like such a handful to drive that car, but as a wannabe driver, it just seems like such a blast. So, I mean, that's a list. Now, obviously, if someone is willing to dish out $66,000 on a Honda Civic Type R, it's because they really like Honda. Or maybe they're a collector and they're gonna sit on this thing for a while. I don't know, that seems goofy. But so that means that they're not necessarily gonna be swayed to another car just based off of price. Aside from all the cool specs on the car that we listed earlier, I think one of the really cool things about this car is that it's made in Japan again. For me, I got into Hondas when I was in high school. 15 years old, looking through my old magazines of Super Street, and I was just like, I want a Civic hatchback. Now I have two. But that's just when I fell in love. And it was that whole JDM thing. It was the whole like, what is this? Kanjo? Like, all that stuff just seems so cool, so far away, and you know, of course that's part of the allure of it. But I loved Honda's whole philosophy. Lightweight car, small displacement engine that just revs to the stars. It's something that is really all about handling and balance of power and that handling. I love that idea. This new car, does it offer that? Do you think it will get this new generation excited about this car? 15-year-olds right now, well, first of all, are you watching this channel? But 15-year-olds right now, do you think they're like, whoa, over this car? Because it's made in Japan. I've heard about these old 90s ones. I don't know, my grandpa has one or something. But this new car, it's made in Japan. Like, I think that's really cool. The drivetrain is made in the US here in Ohio, but you know, again, I think that's pretty cool too, you know, mixing both worlds. A whole kind of made in USA thing, made in Japan. A true collaboration on this car. The Econo box that came out of the 90s then is just stuff of legend, man. The Civic Type R, even the Spoon Civic EG. Obviously, we're not talking about that for this video, but the Civic Type R, like, I just watched so many videos on the early days of YouTube and all with Civic Type Rs going around these Japanese racetracks that I'd never heard of. Does this new car excite you in that same way? I am really happy to see that Honda is going to be racing this car. It will be in the TC category in the IMSA series, taking over for the old Civic Type R that's been running in it for years now. I think that's great. I love to see the cars actually getting out there, being used for what they were intended to be used for, not just driving to work. But I've already been seeing some posts from ordinary people out at the club level doing events with this car already, mostly out in California, and all the way up to pro series, pro race car teams. They're gonna be playing with this car and it's gonna be out there competing. I do like the looks of the new car. I think it looks cool. And then I'm on the other hand, like, maybe it's just because it's a new car. It looks a lot more subtle. I think that's cool, but I also thought the other model, the one before this, the one that everyone calls Boy Racer-ish, that one did grow on me a lot. At first I was like, man, that looks really overstyled, but I actually do really like it, especially when you start lowering it, adding all the kind of performance things, cool wheels and all smaller wheels, you know, than what it came stock. I think it looks really good. Maybe that'll be the same story with this one. I do think that, you know, it really just reminds me of the base model Civic, and they put a wing on it. And again, part of me is like, well, that's actually really cool, because when I think back to when I really liked the Honda stuff, it was that. It was a base car, and people would put an aftermarket wing on it, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. So it kind of harkens back to my old days with that, a whole sentimental thing, and I'm like, I like that. And then on the other hand, I'm like, it just looks like a base model with a wing on. I do think it looks good. I think the front end shot looks really good. It looks aggressive and tough, but a little more subtle than it did before. I think the rear shot looks really nice, again, especially with that wing. The 3-tip exhaust thing, very cool. The price, no. You know, that's a lot of money, man, for a Civic. And for me, kind of my whole philosophy, Travis, the other guy on this channel, will be able to tell you, he hates my philosophy on this, but I'm like, I cannot pay that much money to drive to work every day for just a car for me. My wife and I paid $40,000 for our Honda Pilot, brand new. But I also have 2 little boys, and she needs to cart them around to school. We need to pick up groceries. We're going on vacation. We got luggage for all of us. It's a practical, useful machine that is worth that kind of money in an everyday expense. For me to drive to work, bumper to bumper, with my Honda Civic Type R, all my 315 horsepower, going 40 miles an hour, red light to red light, I just can't justify it for me personally. For you out there wanting to buy it driving to work, like, that's awesome, man. Awesome. It's just, for me personally, I just can't envision it. Now, for a whole race car thing, if I just had, money to just throw around, hell yeah, I'd go get one, and I'd be dropping it on the racetrack tomorrow. I'd be all about that. As far as that other list that I mentioned to you of all those other cars, is there another car in that market that I personally would be like, I'd really want that instead of a Civic Type R? Really, probably the only choice for me that would be like, would be that Cayman. A Porsche Cayman as a track car just seems like, ooh, like that would be good. And even as a daily car, it's more of a cool, that's the status thing and all that. But again, especially as the race car. Civic Type R though, it would be sweet. It would be sweet. I don't know, it's even got me thinking about the older Civic Type R, the old one now, the previous generation. I wonder what prices are gonna do with that, and how much that may drop, and that could be a fun car one day. But so what would you do? $66,000 car, maybe in your area, it's coming out at MSRP, $42,000, $43,000. Is that the case in your area? Let me know. Where do you live, and what is the price of this car? I'd be really curious to hear from y'all and hear your thoughts on, what do you think of the looks? Are you gonna buy the thing? Have you bought the thing? Have you driven it? Let's hear what you all have to say on this one. Lightweight, great design, affordable. What happened to 949 racing wheels? If you are currently looking to buy a new set of 949 6ULs, you aren't going to be able to find them. Websites out there still have the wheel listed, but they show as out of stock and have no ETA. 949s were a really popular wheel. I have a set myself. 15x8 plus 36 in the matte black color, wrapped with Toyo R888R, 225 50/15 tires. Love it. But if they were so popular, where did they go? What happened? Why can't you buy them anymore? 2017 actually ended up being the last year that 949 6ULs were produced. Released in a statement by 949 themselves, in 2017, our Chinese supplier liked our unique 6UL design so much, they decided to copy it for their own home market. As we owned our own tooling, we quickly removed it from the factory and had it recycled. The last full production run was 2017, and we have produced no wheels since. Among a variety of other projects for the Miata, FRS, and BRZ, we've been working on new wheel designs to be made in Taiwan. At this time, there is no ETA or other information on the next generation of 6UL wheels. A few interesting things in that statement that I picked out. One of them being that they said the next generation of 6UL wheels. There were actually some new designs released by 949, and we're gonna get into those in a minute. I'm gonna show you. But first, I just want to say I'm so sorry for 949 Racing, guys. They made such a killer wheel for it to just get ripped off and sold to another market, and they couldn't really do anything about it because it was all overseas. Once they found out, they just removed the tooling, got it out of that factory, and that was it. But what that other factory had made, they had already made. And unfortunately, that is a real problem with working with these overseas companies. But also what that meant for 949 is that since they removed that tooling, they would have to start from scratch again. But they still did get to work on some new wheel designs. And in September of 2021, 949 did release these new designs and put out a poll to the public to see what everybody liked. There are 3 different wheel concepts that they showed, and the people were able to vote on what they liked. And when you know it, the new version of the 6UL ended up winning out. So the 3 designs, the Sanger, Kodo, and then the 6UL. And when you look at the Sanger, it's a different kind of wheel design. They love that kind of concave thing. I'm not a huge fan of it personally. And then they have the Kodo and the 6UL, which actually look really similar. And 949 themselves acknowledged this, but said that the Kodo had like longer arms to the thing compared to the 6UL. It's pretty subtle, you know, it's maybe the Kodo bends in a little bit more at the very top. I don't know, it's pretty subtle. But the 6UL ended up winning out. But when looking closely at these designs too, they're all for 5 lug. And 949 themselves mentioned that these designs were all for 18 by 10. That was 2021 that they released those, and clearly they're thinking of the newer market, the new BRZs, the new 86s, the new Miatas that are out there. They made no mention of making 4 lug wheels and no mention of making anything smaller than the 18, which I think that would happen, but the 15s really seem to be like kind of the farthest thing from their mind. Back to the tooling and production of these things, 949 did say that over the years, all of that had gotten way more expensive, and that to actually do 15s, it's almost not feasible unless it's made in China. And clearly now they have a pretty bad thing going with some Chinese factories. So it kind of does seem like 15s were off the table for them. If you go to 949's website right now and search for 15-inch wheels, there are no search results found. And then looking at 949's Instagram, the last post that they put up was in May, and it was to do with the new coilover series that they got going. Before that, a few posts before that, they did show an image of a completed wheel that was supposedly a crash test dummy, a concept of their Kodo wheel design. But that's it. They just said like, oh, you wanna see something? And like, it looks really cool, but then you didn't hear anything else about it. There's no mention on the website, there is nothing else on the Instagram. And sadly, it doesn't really say anything else about the future of 949 either. I'm pretty sure they still are out there. The website is still there. They have other products for sale, but the wheels thing, it just seems like it's just dead in the water right now. The 949 Racing 6ULs was one of those designs that kinda just came out of nowhere, and it just became an instant classic. It wasn't even made for the 90s Honda enthusiasts. It was really for those old spec Miata guys. But it just so happens that the Miatas and the Civics, both having their 4 lugs, wanting a 15x7 or 15x8 plus 36 design, man, these wheels were just perfect for the Hondas. I even wonder what 949 thinks of that. Like, here they made this wheel for the Miatas, and then the Civic guys, the Honda guys take it over and end up loving the thing. I mean, I'm sure they love that. That's good for business, right? But it's so funny that it just took off with the Hondas. And it's honestly become a pretty classic design for how new the design really is. 949s are always in the conversation of wheels that Honda guys are thinking about. They have a great design, they have a strong design, and it's super affordable. And it's made in all the right sizes. What more do you want? I bought these wheels years ago now, and man, I love them on my EG. It looks so good, and it's such a lightweight wheel. Like, it's everything you want for a racing wheel. You wrap it in a good sticky tire, you get rid of all that unsprung weight, man, that's what's up. And it's such a shame to see such an awesome company have its intellectual property stolen overseas, and then, you know, those people pushing it on their own market. I love the whole kind of story of 949 because they're not some big major company, you know, they're just dudes who like racing. Dudes and probably girls who like racing. And now you kind of see this company in like no man's land. Like, where is it? Maybe it is because I'm into Hondas that I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but it just seems like you don't hear anything from 949 now. Like, their Instagram, the social medias are just quiet. The website seems like it's kind of not even maintained. Like, what if this didn't happen and 949 just kept on rocking with their wheel designs? I feel like this company would be thriving. And although they started promoting everything to Miatas and BRZs, they would have a huge section dedicated to this website based off of Hondas now, based off of how many Honda guys have these wheels on their car. I feel that the social media presence could be totally turned around for these guys. Like, let's get that movement coming back and send all us Honda guys, send them your images of your car on their 949 Racing 6UL. Get them excited about this thing again and get this wheel moving again. Maybe it would never be made for 15s again, but it's such a bummer to see, you know, people who really try to do something and do something, make something of it, and then it's taken away from them. I feel like this company would be in a totally different place had this not happened back in 2017. So obviously, you guys, there's a whole bunch of wheels out there. If you're a 90s Honda guy, even if you're a Miata guy who stumbled onto this, would you consider 949 Racing 6ULs on your car? Do you have a set? When did you buy them? I know that when I went to buy my set, it was like, it may have been 2017, honestly. There was always a hold for these wheels. And I gotta believe that was just because of popularity. Like, there were wheels being produced. 949 themselves said they had thousands of sets of wheels all over for all their different distributors. So it must have been production issues. Clearly there was production issues once they realized that things were getting stolen. And I'm so sorry for those guys. Like, I hope that something comes around for them and that they kind of get this new wheel rolling. Excuse the pun. It doesn't sound like 15s were ever gonna be on the cards again. And I know I had to wait months for these wheels. And that was kind of always the story with 6ULs, right? If you ever went on to Flying Miata or tried to buy 949s from any website, it was always like, you gotta wait. But maybe for the newer Honda guys, maybe for the guys who are buying that new Civic Type R, would you put a set of new 6ULs on that thing? 18 by 10? That sounds like the right size wheel for the new car. Get a little fatter tire going on that thing. That sounds all right. But so where did you buy your set? How much did you pay for your set? Did you know where 6ULs went? I hope that whatever those guys are doing, they're doing something awesome and their business is just thriving. I feel so bad for them for what happened back in 2017 and getting their intellectual property stolen like that. Keep pushing, you guys. You made an awesome product. If you never do anything ever again, congratulations on your original 6UL design. I think it's fantastic. People from all over the world bought that thing, and it's a great wheel. Thank you. What is your favorite JDM part on your car? I know what mine is, but right now, down in the comments, please let me know what is your favorite, your most proud of part that is Japanese domestic market. You waited forever to get this thing. You are so proud to put this thing on your car. What is it? As you're typing that out, before I reveal what my favorite part is, I just wanted to go on a little rant about those parts in general. There's kind of two schools of thought when it comes to parts for 90s Civics, for old JDM cars in general, right? You could always go the cheaper eBay kind of route. You can always go with the aftermarket products as well. Your True Hearts, your hard races, all that kind of stuff. Or do you really bank on just going with the JDM stuff? Spoon Parts, HKS, Mugen, all the cool shops like Aslan, Top Fuel, Spoon, Mugen, HKS, all the super cool Japanese brands that have just become legend. Personally, I've never been one that's like, I've got to have every single part as JDM. Although, as I have this car more and more, I kind of am starting to steer that way where I'm like, I would like to have just the most legit parts that I could put on this car. I don't want to mess around with the True Hearts. I don't want to mess around with hard race stuff anymore. And I have a couple hard race pieces on this car, but those may be getting changed out. I really just want to go with the top quality product, but there's something about having that Japanese domestic market thing on there that just kind of makes it really super cool, doesn't it? And so for me, my favorite JDM part that I have on my car, you guessed it, my HKS high power exhaust system.
Oh man, 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 oh man. Wahoo!
Yes, I love this exhaust system. Not only because it's the JDM thing, not only because I have HKS written somewhere on my car now.
It looks so good.
Not only because it's called high power, because let's face it, I do not have high power in this car, but because it's just a real legit, awesome, well-designed product, and it's making my car sound. Everyone, of course, at one point or another has thought about the Buddy Club Spec 2. There's that whole meme of like every Civic owner just wants to drive around a neighborhood at 3 a.m. with a Buddy Club Spec 2. Like everybody wants to have that open pipe ripping sound. I didn't want to be that guy. Of course, I was looking at the spoon system, just the axle back, and then maybe getting some piping made before that. The whole axle back thing, it's spoon, that's awesome. But I decided against it because I'm like, well, I know some racetracks actually do put a limit on sound noise. Looks good, but I decided I didn't want to go with that either and ended up with the HKS high power exhaust. I'd heard a few clips online before that just made this exhaust just so appealing because it had so much of a different tone compared to the other exhaust systems. It has so much more of like a low kind of grumbled tone to it, which is very different compared to the normal tin canny kind of raspiness that you expect from a Honda. I do like that sound. It's kind of that classic like single cam sound, but the HKS system just really drew me in. And I know there's quite a few of you guys who watch this channel who have that same system. Do you still love it? Do you still have it? What do you got on your car right now? I would love to get into some more JDM type parts. What I mean by that is like, well, of course, just from Japan, but just solid products that everybody is like, that's a good part. I've bought the parts before, you know, and you get it and like you get the response that's kind of like, really? You're going with that? And then really kind of when I think about it too, I'm like, really? I went with that? Now I'm at the stage where I want to be building this car with parts that are like well designed and from the people who have the best intentions, the people who are actually doing the R&D testing on these parts. Not saying that other companies don't do any R&D, I know they do, but the original founders of some of these things, you know, the spoon parts, the stupid duckbill that costs $10,000 now. But I love the thing. The spoon front lip, the carbon front lip, another 10 grand. It's not really, but that's what I want that thing. But it's gonna be easily 1,500 bucks to get those two pieces. But still, it's one of those things that's just like, it's the real deal part. Real carbon fiber made by the actual company for this car. No one has knocked off their design and stolen it. That kind of stuff sucks and it ruins businesses. So yeah, I would be willing to fork out some more money to start getting some more legitimate parts on this car. Some engine stuff always springs to mind, right? Like you can get the really cool ITBs. Already got the exhaust system, but the headers, the cool intakes, strut bars, coilovers, the rear brace bars, and then finally other suspension bits. Like there's lots of cool stuff to get. And then into the interior as well. My EG doesn't really have an interior, but I got these brown corduroy seats from an Integra in there right now. They came with the car, and yeah, I still got them in there. I still race with these things too, but I want to get some cool Brid seats in there. I want to get some cool Recaros. I want to get some cool JDM parts. I'm gonna be looking into all those parts more. I'm kind of formulating my whole game plan now of what I want to do. But you know, kind of really all inspired by that original part that I got, that HKS exhaust system. Man, I love that thing. It sounds so good. And I get a lot of compliments on it too about that N1 angle, they call it. You know, the piping doesn't just come straight out. It kind of goes out at the angle. It's so cool, man. It's got so much style, and I love that. And so I got some cool plans coming for this car. I know you guys got cool plans coming for your car too. What are you working on right now? What parts are you saving up your hard-earned dollars for? Because we're all doing it. You may be lying to yourself, oh bro, I'm gonna keep it stock. I'm just gonna put wheels and I'm gonna drive it to work every day. A year later and that thing is stupid. You got 10 grand into it and you're like, I'm working to pay for this car. That's financially irresponsible. Don't do that. We gotta have fun with our cars, right? We gotta have fun fun with our lives, and we love this kind of stuff. So what kind of parts are you putting on your car right now? What are you saving up for? Thank you all so much for watching this episode. Talk to you in the next one.